Thank you. That was an interesting conversation that we just had. I actually own a temporary staffing company that works with the rescue mission to give people an opportunity to succeed in employment outside of their 1 year, once they go through a year-long employment program with the rescue mission that we have in Bakersfield. So it was very interesting to be able to have that, and you guys should support an organization like that. I hope I live up to the expectation that I was just introduced by as a dynamic speaker. I do love speaking at Republican Women organization events. I have spoke at Berkeley in front of the poli-sci, 400 and something members of students at Berkeley. So I just don't go where I'm comfortable. I go to Berkeley and we go toe to toe all the time. And I end up getting a lot of Facebook friends and Twitter friends because these students have a dose of reality and truth that hits them right in the face and they can't argue with it. So it is fun to speak at Republican Women events because Republican women are amazing individuals. You put God, country, and then service before each one of the meetings that you start. And I really appreciate each one of you for doing that, so thank you. I am not a typical legislator. I say that all the time because I am not what you would call a typical legislator. My mom was a single mom. I was raised on the baby of 5 kids. I never went to college because there wasn't any money. I'm from the School of Hard Knocks life. I joined the United States military, served overseas at Headquarters Company 5th Corps in Frankfurt, Germany. I was in Germany. They call me a Cold War veteran. And I was in Germany when the wall came down.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is now a 5-minute call to our 1 o'clock shotgun start. At this time,
1 o'clock shotgun start. Who's leaving?
Great day out there.
So I was in Germany. They call me a Cold War veteran. And I was in Germany when the wall came down between East and West Berlin. And I think about my life and what the things that God, you can look back in your life and see all the pillars that God has placed in your life to make you realize where you're supposed to go and what your purpose is. And sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. I still haven't realized it, but I can look back specifically with my time in Germany. And when the wall came down between East and West Berlin, I saw a gentleman come through the wall, and he had a tattered kind of blue jeans on with a kind of a worn out belt and a brass buckle, no shirt, and they were too high. They were high water jeans is what I would call them. And he dropped to his knees and he just started crying. So I never talked to the guy, but I made up my own story. He's somebody who went across to visit his aunt or his grandma, and the wall went up that night and he wasn't allowed to go home for decades later. That individual to me knows what freedom really is. Know what it is to have freedom, know what it is to lose freedom. There was a quote earlier when we first started about Ronald Reagan, and he's one of my favorite governors of the state of California and my favorite president. And one of the things that Ronald Reagan said is that we are 1 generation away from losing our freedoms. I believe that we are 1 election away from losing our freedoms. And I say that because I work in a building just a couple of miles from here, 23 miles from here. And as my first government job, never being in government before, never holding any type of office. I mean, I left being a business owner. I still am a business owner, but being the president, CEO, which I still am, but leaving the day-to-day operations of that business and jumping into the state assembly. I don't know what I was thinking. I still sometimes don't know what I was thinking. Because I get up to this building up here in this beautiful state capitol, and there are people that are after our freedoms, our very way of life. And when you look at the local government committees and you look at local government the local government agenda that they have on these committees, they're coming after your way of life. And I say that because SB 375 was the Steinberg bill that passed in 2008, was signed into law by Governor Schwarzenegger. It takes effect January of 2014. And what I see that the state is doing, in my opinion, is setting up all these state boards and commissions that are unaccountable, unelected individuals. You have LAFCOs, MPOs, coastal commissions, the Air Resources Board. All these people are unelected, unaccountable individuals to the people of the state. And they are yielding a great deal of power, and they have yielded a great deal of resources to be able to allocate as they so choose. And the reason why I brought up SB 375, this Steinberg bill, is because it changes the way that city councils and county supervisors will be able to plan their communities. It says that you have to have 20 units per acre and be a half a mile from transit, or you're considered unsustainable, or you have an inconsistent land use. So just by a show of hands, because I'm not in a college group and they overwhelm me with this number, but Out of a show of hands, how many of y'all live on 20 units per acre? Nobody. Okay. Then consider yourself, according to the California State Legislature in SB 375, you are inconsistent land use and you are no longer sustainable. And the reason I bring that up is because it's very important to know that they are looking at changing our very way of existence, of how we have, the earlier speaker talked about how we grew up, what we knew, how we worked hard, the American dream, things like that. And then there's a society of people that just have handouts and giveaways, because that's Democrats' answer to the American dream, is giving everybody everything and the government controls everything and then hands it out to who they so choose. And there's a society of people that are used to and accustomed to that. But we are not used to and accustomed to that. We're used to, each one of us has our own American story to tell. Like I said, my mom, single mom, never went to college, she went back and got her high school diploma when she was 30 years old, but I have my tenacity and my truth and where I come from and who I am because of the way my mom raised me. So we all have a way that we want to survive and live, and the supermajority in that building is trying to take that from us. Whether it's through the land use issues, there's a bill going through the building right now, and let me give you a little history. They used to allow the Williamson Act to take place for landowners and farmers to be able to have a tax credit for not developing their land and using it for farming use. They've eliminated the Williamson Act to the counties, so the dollars don't go to the counties, and counties have the choice to fund it or not. So what was happening is that farmers and landowners were going, oh my gosh, I can't afford all the taxes on these mass lands that I have, so I'm going to sell off a piece of it. Well, now the legislature got wise to that, so this Assemblymember Eggman is running a bill that says if you sell off any of your land, you have to do a 6-to-1 set aside. So say you want to sell off 10,000 acres of your land in order to pay your taxes for your future. You have to set aside in a conservatory or a conservancy or an easement for the environmentalists 6,000 acres to sell your 1,000 acres. So they're using the Environmental Act, the California Environmental Act, and they're using all of these laws against us to, number one, seize our land, take our freedoms, take our guns, or limit our freedom of speech. They have a bill going through the building right now. It's a bill against the Boy Scouts. It's got a lot of public attention, so I'm sure you guys all know about it. But basically, the First Amendment allows us freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the court has upheld that freedom of association is a part of that. In 2000, there was a New Jersey court that ruled in support of the Boy Scouts, meaning that if you are a Catholic organization or a Boy Scout organization or just a Republican women's club, you can only or choose by your bylaws to only allow Republican women to participate in this club. You have the right to association. Just like the Boy Scouts have the right to association to not let gay, lesbian, transgender, or bisexual instructors around the students or the young boys to go camping or up in the mountains or spend in campouts weeks, at a time. So they have the right under the protection of the Constitution and our First Amendment for the freedom of association. There is a bill going through the building right now to punitively punish the Boy Scouts to allow them not to have a tax-exempt status or a 501c3 or 4 association or a tax ID status if they do not allow gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual instructors or scoutmasters in their organization. Now they have fought this all the way up to the courts, to the Supreme Court, and they have, not the Supreme Court, but the regional court, and they have won. But the bottom line is that the liberal left is trying to continue to push and push and push and push until they either give in and give up, which they have on some issues, because it's so expensive to fight, or to bankrupt them because it costs so much money to fight. And I say that only to say that the problem that we have is that is just one organization, and this bill does not exempt any religious organization. It doesn't exempt the Catholic Church, Muslims, Sikh. It doesn't exempt anybody who thinks differently than the LGBT issue. They stand up on the floor, and I'm going to focus on this for just a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't, but it's on my heart, so I'm going to. They stand up on the floor and they make statements that, it's discrimination. It's not discrimination. They say it's a civil right. It's not a civil right. The bottom line is that any of us in this room, we can never change the color of our skin, no matter how much we try. You can't become unwhite or non-Latino. It just doesn't happen. You can't change your eye color, your height, things like that. You can't change those things, but you can change and determine who you are, and what you choose for your own sexual, personal gratification. And I said that on the floor one day, and I thought they were all going to have a heart attack. Because I've never known anybody who has become unwhite or un-Latino, but I have known many people who have become un- or non-bisexual or transgender, or people that have become heterosexual to bisexual or transsexual. So I'm just saying that there's a lot of issues going on with a small majority of people that are pushing a social agenda that is unnatural. And to me, as a spirit-filled believer, it's against God's law. And, you know, we have to look out for those things. I know I spent some time on that, maybe I shouldn't have, but let's go to the budget. You know, the Boy Scout bill is really bothering me. The other thing is the gender fluidity bill. Have you guys all heard about that one, where your K through 12 student can use any bathroom they choose? You know, we'll have combination bathrooms, because, you know, it's discriminatory if a little boy feels like a little girl and you make him go to the boys' dressing room to take a shower. He should be able to take a shower with the girls because he feels like a girl. Well, you know, there's huge problems with that. How many think there's problems with that? Okay, all right. So there's that bill, and, you know, I want you to know that both these bills flew off the originating House floor. The Boy Scout bill originated in the Senate House, flew off the Senate House floor. It's in the Assembly. The gender fluidity bill on the school systems, allowing anybody to use, they're calling it safe use of facilities, and they're making it sound like it's a non-discriminatory bill. But the bottom line is that who's going to stand up and protect the rights of the young girl that is in 7th grade or 6th grade or whatever grade, it doesn't matter, and she's going to the bathroom and in walks a guy to go to the bathroom too, or take a shower too. Or, you know, men are very visual and they see a girl that thinks she's a boy, but they really see a girl's body, you know, in the shower. You know, it just invites problems. So in our school districts, and there's no history or test. There's no, you know, this person's been struggling with for a year, their gender identity, they've gone to counseling. You know, it's just like they self-identify, walk in, hey, I'm feeling a little male-ish today. So that's how it's identified. It's self-identification. So that's why I wanted to bring those two things up. Let's, I think it's a violation of free speech when you look at the Boy Scouts issue, and I think it's a violation of our First Amendment, and then the other one is just what I call gender insanity bills. They're just gender insanity bills. So let's look at the budget. You know, recently I didn't support Prop 30, but recently taxpayers in the state, hardworking taxpayers and voters, approved Prop 30. It was all supposed to go to our education system. And I'm here to tell you it has not gone to our education system. We introduced as Republicans a bill that would raise tuition for our state university students for the 7 years that Prop 30 was in effect, and they killed that bill. And it's dead in the water, and the UC system lobbyists, we had a lot of kids from Berkeley and Sac State come and testify, and it was really interesting to see that all these students were testifying to support the tuition freeze bill, and there was a lobbyist up front representing the UC system. Now, as a legislator, one of the most fun things that I ever get to do is I can ask anybody any question, and they're required to answer it, okay? I can ask, I'm going to the dais and say, what color underwear you wear today? And they'd probably have to answer. I would never do that, but anyways. So this lobbyist stands up and I said, how much do you make? And he goes, I beg your pardon. I said, how much do you make? UC systems are asking for more money. You're raising tuition on students. You're not using Prop 30 money. How much money do you make? And he said, $331,000 a year. I thought, thank you. And I thought the students in the hallway were going to have a heart attack. So basically, you have the budget bill that comes up. You have all these bills that we try to do to bring some sound fiscal control and spending over it, and they all get killed. You have, they just picked your pockets on Prop 30, and now they are trying to go after Proposition 13. That is becoming a little bit more of a challenge for them, which is our property tax rights. That is becoming a little bit more challenging to them, so what they're doing is going after your homeowner's insurance policy. Your homeowner's insurance policy will now be taxed at a higher rate because you own a home, because they can't go after your land property. They also have a tax in the budget this year that will tax employers for health and safety issues like OSHA, Cal OSHA, and things like that. They also have taxes on MCO or medical plans, MCAs or medical care associations, and they also have Obamacare is coming into play. And I mentioned Obamacare because there's a recent Wall Street Journal article where the Democrats in California have said it's not going to raise the cost, it's going to make it more affordable, people are going to have health care, and now their story is, well, the cost is going up a little bit, but it's going to be worth it because everybody's going to have coverage. And that was last week, and this week, like, well, okay, we know it's going to be expensive, but, you know, so they're changing their story on a daily basis because the new estimates that come out say that an average 26 to 20 to 30-year-old person that's averagely healthy, your rates are going to go up from 74 to 146% higher. So you have a lot of issues that are going on up in the building, and sometimes I feel like I pull my hair out because I get up there and it's like you beat yourself against the wall and nobody gets it. You have developmental centers, which was, I was on a target for that a couple of weeks ago. You know, we pay $500 million to keep almost 1,400 people institutionalized. And I say institutionalized because years ago, when you had a kid with developmental disabilities, they would go to these institutions per se, Sonoma, Latterman, things like that. But now they all live in society with us. They work with us, they play ball with us, they're just integrated into society. We don't know any different. But there are a few people that are still left in these facilities, and it costs $491,000 a year per bed for these people to be in these facilities. And what we found out is that the disabilities advocates that are supposed to be there for these individuals make anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000 a year. And there have been reported, I mean, there's 2 children that have been produced by women who can't consent for sex. So, you know, I stood up on the floor and I'm like, where's the Legislative Women's Caucus? These are rapes that are taking place by state union employees, and we're still paying them. There was a guy who tasered individuals. There was a guy who broke his neck. They said it looked like he had been dropped from a 2-story building. These abuses are horrifyingly taking place by the people that we pay as state employees. And what's interesting about it is that you have these reporting people that report to the Office of Protective Services, which is like their own police department, who report to their governance, which is like their own governance department, and then they decide whether it should go to outside law enforcement. So it's like you know, somebody said it's like the hen watching the fox watching the hen house, and I stood up in the committee and I'm like, it's like the coach at Penn State. Yes, I saw him in the shower but didn't think anything of it. You know, it's crazy what these people are doing. So the state has a lot of problems and a lot of issues. We have issues with, I believe, in election integrity. I think they're getting us at the election ballot box. I think we have a lot of issues with election integrity. I think that the Republican women have a great thing going around. I hope you guys are going to be a part of it. It's called Guard My Vote. It has to do with voter ID. A lot of Republican women organizations are coming together to support that. I mean, you have to have an ID for everything. Name one thing you don't have to have an ID for. You have to have an ID for just about everything. And the bottom line is you need to have voting. Yes, name one thing, voting. That was very good.